Perfect. Thank you so much. Before I go into telling you about my group and my closing thoughts, I'm going to ask the facilitators to share what occurred in your groups, and I will start with Mrs. Bailey.
I knew you'd do that.
Sorry.
Well, my group was very interesting. I had the opening speaker for one. So I asked about polling and can you, I can't do it, but if someone could register and do it, because I know someone who is going to work the polls at a school right next to her house. And we explored a lot of different things. One, the French election process and how everybody had to count the ballots before they left the polling place and make sure it was accurate. So accuracy was very, very important. And I thought that was, you know, it was a really interesting thing, because that whole idea of questioning the process and, you know, the fact that everybody questions the process, that's a life, you know, that's just, that always happens, what is fair and what isn't. But I think the thing that we touched upon most of all is big money and lobbies and the power that that has to disenfranchise people, to keep people from running for political office, to keep people from making a stand. You know, Abby said, well, you know, if I decided to run for office in New York City, there's a whole machine. You know, how do you attack the machine? I mean, and this has happened, you know, in the past. If you read history, this has always been true. But the people who attack it seem to have risen in power. Many, I will say, males, and so now it's time for the and the other thing is that we kind of ended with that I really liked. Where was that? It seems like the idea of service, like you if you run for office, you are serving your country, and that's a really good thing to do. But it seems like what's happening is that people who run and say that they're serving the country, that they are really a minority that is ruling, and they're trying to pretend that they're serving while they're doing what they want to do to serve their own self-interest. And there's a lot of that going on. And so that keeps people from feeling like or thinking that they should go vote because it makes a difference. And we ended with, I came up with the idea that it's a way to serve your country. It's a way to serve democracy. And I'm saying that because I'm in the Coast Guard Auxiliary and I put on the uniform, and sometimes people salute me and they say, thank you for serving. And I go, oh no, I played in the band. I did not serve in the country, but we each serve. That's a very good point. And to say that, you know, you must go vote. No, serve your country by voting in this election. And not even, you know, who or where, but if I could get you to the polls, if I can drive you to polls, if I can do things like that, then, but helping people feel you know, that it is important to do this. And I think that's really important for younger people to understand that particularly. So I thank my group. It was really interesting. I enjoyed you.
Thank you so much for that, Mrs. Bailey. And you're so right, like service, there's something so beautiful and powerful about serving. Thank you. Ms. Natalie Borneo.
Thank you, General Manager. I too enjoyed the conversation in our room. We had a lot of time to go around and just really continue the threads of conversation. So we had someone who's in Washington, D.C., who has over his lifetime been in situations where he and his mother were advocating for individuals, addressing different needs in terms of eviction or food shortage. And so that felt good. And now in this time, there are some threads of that are coming in as we look at now this call to action, which is a little different. It's not just advocating for something where you'll see the immediate outcome. It is really being a part of a much bigger movement. And sometimes in that movement, we question how our actions are helpful or not, because we can't see the immediate outcome. Yet, we're drawn to the fact that something needs to happen and something needs to change. We also had a 20-year-old in our group who just graduated from school, and really her focus on women's studies and leads her to be pretty excited about all of the activity going on, but yet the recognition that this is tremendous what we're seeing and experiencing, and it really equates to consistent mass trauma. We're all experiencing this trauma together, yet we have individual reactions and responses to this trauma. We don't think about it as trauma, but it's around us every day. We can't escape it. It's the topic of conversation. It's on the news. It's how we can move around or not, and whether we have a job or not. So it's all over. And then we had the very wise words of one person in our room that said, listen, at the end of the day, if it does not feel right, you just need to do something. Don't look for the fruit of your action. Silence equates to being complicit, especially if something's happening to someone else. So we came around the corner and we basically recognized that this movement that we're experiencing is something that will continue throughout our lifetime and probably beyond. But we are agents who are called to action to keep this movement going. We are the ones that support the movement by the things that we do. So this movement will continue, and each of us has a role to play in the movement. The change we seek, one of our participants said, is slower than we expected, but we still find that we're convicted. Don't look for the fruit of your action. Just do it because it's the right thing to do. Be more generous in your empathy for others, other groups, because you understand what it feels like to be underrepresented or to be treated in a certain way. So I think we left with some good feelings around, you know what, this is going to be okay because I'm going to do what I can in this movement, and I'm going to continue to be a contributor.
Thank you so much. And I love the discussion you guys had. What stands out to me about outcomes and the participation in outcomes, whether they're slow to be seen or you can't see them. And what's interesting is as we experience this trauma, there might be some immediate outcomes, but because it's trauma, we have no idea what it's really going to play out to be. So thank you. Great discussion. Dr. Clifton?
Yeah, the group, we spent a lot of time talking about what in the past has prevented us from standing up and taking an action. And there's a variety of reasons, family, society, but we all seem to agree that when we did stand up, we just learned so much more, so we're trying to help, but we're getting helped, and we're getting to like craft or mold our own values and our own levels of what's really important in life. And we talked about a Rumi quote where, Rumi said, when he's praying and he says, when death, dear God, give me the grace that when death finds me, he finds me doing what I love. We were sort of kind of moving towards the fact that if we're really standing up and seeing and moving towards equality and justice, that becomes a very valuable thing that we love, and to be able to do that, and people are willing to risk their lives for that, and feel blessed because they're doing that, and each time we do stand up, we learn more and more, and then just differentiating between what is a kind of a universal impediment that we might be culture might impose upon us, and what we impose upon ourselves to hold back and not live out the freedom that we all potentially have. So it was inspiring. People shared what their experiences had been, and the other really important thing is when we brought up the idea of like COVID or social injustice. Well, it's really very difficult, but it's a stopping exercise. And this stopping gives us the time and reflective time to sort of look at, well, what's really important now? What is, maybe doing what we love is important and not doing what we don't love. And so then we kind of shared that, maybe Sabbath historically was a stopping exercise, not to, to be a good follower of whatever belief structure, but, to stop and see what's really important and hear that inner voice. So it was a very nice sharing of people. So it's always a pleasure. And,
Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, just stopping exercise. I was going through and I was thinking of Jamaica, and I was thinking of Bob Marley, and he was called for to really stand up, but stand up where he could have been killed. But he brought these warring parties together. That's courage, and that's doing what you love. Of course, maybe soccer was his biggest love besides music. But sorry for the anecdote.
That's good. Right.
Oh, that was awesome. I love that too, like the standing up, and like once you decide to stand up and show up, the knowledge that you can impart, and just like you finished, Dr. Clifton, like then when you have that knowledge, you become this vehicle to share that knowledge with other people, and those become the ripple effects that we need in this world.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We had a great group too. And we talked about a lot of things. We really started talking about being complicit and being non-confrontational perhaps in the beginning, and then finding it within ourselves that, we can't slip into victimhood, or we can't lay ourselves down while other people continue to make decisions for us or speak for us, and that we have to find a way to stand up and be agents of ourselves rather than have external agents for us. And we had a person who worked in DC and did a lot of advocacy for a certain population. And as she knows about disparities, she now is trying to rethink how she's going to approach, a subject she was never involved with before. And it really kind of sat with us that once you know something, you can't unknow it, and which causes you to kind of really understand to move towards actions to change yourself. Like words have power and meaning, and whether you have an intent behind how you say it or that you say it, they still have meanings. And you should, someone asks you to change, or it's right to change, then change. We had a really great story that led to a robust discussion. One of our members didn't know about racism until he came to this country and was taught racism. He happened to be working at a bookstore and then fired, but then the next day saw a white woman that had his job. And they're like, that's racism, you need to do something. And he actually, didn't stand up to the bookstore, but went and joined a Black student board and became the president there, and started to educate them and create change and show up there, because there was also, because he was from Africa, there wasn't that full connection there again, because, the sense of oppression and understanding of that. And we really realized that sometimes we know something. We know that there are disparities. We see injustice all over, but it isn't until something is affecting us personally, or someone we love, that we actually are moved to action. And I think that's something that we have to facilitate to change in America. It is not just because you're getting slapped in the face that someone else deserves to get slapped in the face. And we, you know, movement just like should be happening because, you know, it's for everyone. If it's going to help you, it's going to help everyone. And we ended with this African term that I was taught, Ubuntu, which means I am because we are, which I thought was really powerful. And so, thank you to my group. I really appreciate it. Always a good time. I'll leave you with some of my closing thoughts on showing up. And it is something that I feel most people in their lives continue to work on and to really understand what that means to us and to each other. And I wouldn't actually consider myself a joiner or a participator naturally. I know that most people would see me and they're like, what are you talking about? But I really am not. That is a learned skill that I have had to develop. And I can think about an early memory. I think I must have been in second grade when I wasn't a joiner. I was in a summer day program and my mom let me have the option not to go. And I remember going the first couple of days and seeing this group of cool kids, and I was like, oh, I really want to connect. I really want to make friends. But because I had the option not to go, I didn't really show up. And so over time, I just hated going because I felt disconnected from these group of people. And maybe I was like, oh, I really wanted it, but I just wouldn't show up. And I think this is a small example about how, but I have a lot over the years of when this has happened to me personally and professionally. And I think I carried this notion that it was them. They didn't want me to participate. They didn't want to get to know me. And now I have a realization that it was actually me, that through insecurities, through anything learned behavior, just by being a naturally shy person, that I was robbing others of the opportunity to hear my voice, and I was giving them the ability to speak for me. And, you know, but as an adult, I realized that if I didn't show up, I was going to let this continue to be happening. I was going to feel disconnected for the rest of my life and never fully participate in my own life. And then when I got into social services, I learned that it's not always about you. Sometimes you have to use your voice for other people that can't show up, whether they're physically disabled, they don't have enough food, they don't have enough clothes, they don't have the simple necessities. And it is our responsibility to stand up for those people and to show up. You know, it's like showing up matters. It is not just showing up at elections of the council. It's whatever you want to create change. If you don't show up, it is not going to happen. And I always tell people like that if you can't let life happen to you, you have to happen to life. And it also knows when you show up, you let other people know that you matter and that we matter together. So that's my spiel on showing up. It's definitely a skill, but practice it. If you find yourself having that icky feeling in your stomach when you're like, oh, should I call this person that I want to connect with because they have a question? Push past that, because I 100% guarantee it is welcomed. Questions are welcome from other people. Connection is welcome for other people. It's a question of who is brave enough to overcome that ick and to make the first move. And the person who makes that first move, the person who continues to show up, is the person whose voice is going to be heard and who they are representing is going to be heard, and their will be done. Thank you.